it's Olivia, and welcome back to Live in Literature. Thank you so much for all the love and support received my last video, and if you have not seen it yet, feel free to head over to the channel to check it out. Well guys, today we got a special treat for you. This is a video that I've been seeing that has been very popular on Book Talk, which, as you know from last week's video, I just did a whole rant about Book Talk. So if you haven't seen that video yet, feel free to head over and check it out on my channel. But yes, I was perusing Book Talk as I normally do because I love TikTok. I love it. I love Book Talk. I also hate Book Talk, as you will see from my rant. But anyways, I was perusing Book Talk, and I saw a lot of people doing like books that they thought were going to be 5 stars versus books that actually were 5 stars that they've read either this year or last year or like pretty recently. So I really tried to curate a list of books that I have read either this year or pretty recently, maybe a little bit into last year. And I wanted to curate a list for you guys of books that like I was really hoping and I saw the hype and I thought they were going to be 5 stars versus books that actually were 5 stars when I read them. Now, full disclosure, a lot of these books came very close to the 5-star mark, okay? So they're still very good books. I would still recommend them to anyone. Most of them, not all of them, but most of them. So I'd still recommend them to you guys, but they're not like a 5-star read like some of the other ones I'm going to be recommending to you today. Now, like I said, most of the books here that I'm recommending are from either this year, that came out this year, or very late into last year a little bit. I really tried to curate my list, and I'll be honest, just to be totally real with you guys, I haven't given out that many 5-star reads this year. It has been few and far between. I feel like last year it was like every other book I was reading was a 5-star read. Like, I was very impressed by last year's selection. This year, I feel like the authors are losing their steam a little bit. I feel like we're going on a little bit of a downhill.
I am very uncomfortable with the energy that we've created in the studio today.
Like, don't get me wrong, a lot of these books are very good. They're just not like the crisp perfection that is a 5-star read, in my opinion. And I would say that I am very strict about my 5-star reads. Some people might not agree, but I think I'm pretty strict about my 5-star reads and what I consider a 5-star.
Professionals have standards.
So, the ones that I'm going to be recommending for you today are true 5 stars, and I cannot wait to recommend them for you. So, stick around as we get into it, and let's get started. First, we'll be starting with books that I thought were going to be a 5-star read. Let's just kick this one right off the bat because I know you people who are the powerless Lauren Roberts fans have been dying for my reaction to Heartless by Lauren Roberts. Heartless. And unfortunately, guys, we're kicking it off with books I thought were going to be 5 stars. Heartless is not a 5-star read, okay?
That's incredible. I think I'm gonna have a heart attack and die from that surprise.
Now don't get me wrong, I was very excited for Heartless. I was super excited for it to come out. And I loved Powerless, but Powerless still also wasn't a 5-star read. I think I gave it like a 4.5. Because I'll be honest, as I've said previously, the writing, mid, the banter, times a billion. It's everything. And Heartless, again, I would say very much the same thing, except almost worse, if I'm being honest. Like, I feel like the banter, yes, was 1,000% totally worth it. It was everything. It was everything you wanted from a second book. And I know what people said that Lauren is doing. People have said that Lauren is like, and apparently Lauren has said this in a couple of interviews, that this book 2 was supposed to be kind of like a building book to get to book 3. It was supposed to be kind of like a stepping stone book. But I hate when authors do that to a trilogy, when the second book becomes like totally useless and completely unimportant to the story. It becomes something that like no one wants to read. And I kind of felt like she kind of did this book a little bit dirty. Don't get me wrong. Was the banter excellent? Yes. Was the enemies to lovers enemy to lovering? Yes. Was I eating up every single moment of their anger and animosity and angst towards one another? Yes. But I feel like there were weird plot devices used. I felt like there was a lot of spinning around. I felt like there was a lot of like, they just kept repeating kind of the same plot like over and over and over and over again. There was a lot of like repeating the same thing over and over and again. And it almost felt like it didn't even need to happen. Like, I feel like book 2 and 3 could have been combined into like one giant book, and they could have cut out like half the nonsense that went on in this book. Because it was just a lot of like spinning around in circles or going over the same issue over and over and over again. And to be honest, it was kind of buggy. I really expected a lot from Heartless. People were hyping it up so much. Obviously, I was really excited because after finishing Powerless and the way that it ends on that cliffhanger, I really thought that Heartless was going to give. Heartless did not give. It was giving like 3.5 stars, to be honest. Like, I'm not that impressed. I enjoyed the book. Don't get me wrong. Like, I'm glad that I read it. I can't wait to read the third one when it comes out next year. Like, it's going to be great. I can't wait. but I still think that it's a pretty like mid book, and that like it could have been better, and I wish it had been better and more thought through. So that's my official review of Reckless. Next, moving on to someone that I cannot even believe is in this category. And if you've been here a long time, you know that I love this author. We have Miss V.E. Schwab's The Fragile Threads of Power. Now,
I'm shocked. This is shocking news.
Don't get me wrong. I adore V.E. Schwab. I think V.E. Schwab is one of the greatest authors currently living. She's in my top 3 best authors. It goes SJM, Amy Harmon, V.E. Schwab. Like, V.E. Schwab is that girl. She writes books for people who want to taste the words in their mouth, who want to hear color, you know? Like, she writes books in such beautiful detail, so pristine, with characters that are so morally gray and so driven in their own directions that you just don't know where she's headed with it. Like, she is a mastermind of literature, and I fully agree with that. But The Fragile Threads of Power was not up to her normal 5-star standard. I really felt like the book lacked a lot of things that I was looking for. This book, I was really excited for, because if you're familiar with the Darker Shades of Magic trilogy, this is a continuation of that trilogy, like 7 years later. So the characters are all in their like late 20s, early 30s now. These are all characters that you know well, that you are like very familiar with, that you love. Like, these are characters that I like adore because I knew them when they were like in their like early 20s. And like literally fell in love with them. Their story was so compelling. Like, I'm obsessed with Delilah and Kel. Like, their relationship is so great and I love it. It's a long story, but essentially all I do on this channel is recommend a Darker Shade of Magic if you want a true fantasy trilogy to read Darker Shade of Magic. But this is a continuation of these characters' story in a whole other way. And I'll be honest, I just feel like it was not up to V.E. Schwab's normal standards. Like, I felt like things were rushed. I felt like characters like needed more time to be fleshed out. I felt like there were so many things that happened to like specific characters that I didn't think would have happened realistically, and it just didn't feel very realistic in certain ways. I felt like the book, again, I feel like this is similar to Lauren Roberts almost, where like this book is a building book. Like, this book was to set up what the new world looks like, to set up what these people are like now, and then the next book is going to be something that's going to be like, whoa, like mind-blowing, jaw on the floor, like totally mind-boggling. It's going to be amazing. But this book just felt more like a setup, and to be honest, I don't mind when a book is set up. Like, I loved it when it was Crescent City Book 1, House of Blood and Earth. Like, all that setup was everything to me. And I ate that book up, though, because it really was, like, I feel like it was really genuine. And I feel like this lacked some of the genuineness that it normally has. Don't get me wrong, this was still 4.5 stars. Like, 4.5, it's almost 5. Like, it was really well written. It's still really fun. The characters are still people that you love and who you recognize and that you just like adore. But I feel like this book was just, again, it felt just too much like a setup to me into something bigger that's coming, which I'm very excited for what's coming. I'm sure the next couple of books that she writes in this trilogy are going to be 5-star reads, but this one just wasn't. It just didn't hit her normal mark for me. But I still love the book, so still go read it. The next one that does not make it into the 5-star category, and we're not even going to be surprised because I've talked about how much of a disappointment this book was this year, we have A Tempest of Tea by Hafsa Faizal. Now listen, I've said my piece about Hafsa Faizal, how I just don't think she's the author for me. I think her writing is rushed. I think her characters are not fully developed enough. And I feel like she just jumps between the points a little too abruptly, and there's not enough of like a build up to getting there and a little bit of like a climax to get where we need to.
Answer my question. Were you rushing or were you dragging?
The reason why I thought this book was going to be a 5-star read was because of the plot. The plot was supposed to be everything. It's essentially like a tea house in like London, like steampunk vibes, but there's vampires and she serves the vampires at night and there's supposed to be a big heist. This was promoted as like a Six of Crows, but like with vampires, which like, if you know anything about my vibe, it's that I love Six of Crows, I love a heist, and I love sexy vampires. And I thought this book was going to give that.
That's Edward Cullen. He's totally gorgeous, obviously.
And to be honest, it was such a disappointment. Hafsa Faizal, listen, girl, love ya. I'm sure you're great. I'm sure you're a wonderful person. But I cannot get behind your literature. I need you to flesh out your ideas before you're putting them on paper. I feel like she's got these brilliant plans in her head, but they're just not executed well on paper. And this book was kind of a disappointment for me. I think I gave it like a 3-star rating, maybe 2.5. Like, I was pretty brutal with this one. It just felt too jumbly. Like, the characters that she created were very compelling, and I feel like they had good stories to tell. But it felt just too jumbly. It felt like we didn't get to know them enough. It was just too all over the place. And things happened that I was like, wait a minute, what happened? And I had to go back a couple pages and reread it and like go back through it. I'm like, I don't understand how they got from point A to point D. Like, there's so many pieces in between that are missing. So again, this one was more like, I knew I was taking a risk with House of Faisal because I've never really been a fan of hers, but I really thought the plot was going to save it and give it that 5-star quality, and it just didn't, and I was pretty disappointed. This one for me, this next one I'm going to recommend, is one that I really thought was going to take the cake for me. Like, this one was really hyped up as one of the most anticipated reads of the year, and I was very excited for when it came out. And to be honest, it just fell flat for me. We have Fae Bound by Sarah L. Arifi. Fae Bound was supposed to be this like elven, like Amazon African descent with the Fae and with these elven sisters who like, there's 2 elven sisters. One of them's in the army. The other one's like a diviner. She does like oracles and prophecies and stuff. The one who's in the army ends up getting exiled and her sister goes after her, but they end up finding the Fae, which are separate from the elves in this world. And they end up like finding the Fae and finding out that like that these Fae had been cursed to live underground for like all these years because of certain things. And these elven sisters are trying to help them like figure it out essentially. I thought this book was going to be everything I wanted and more. I was expecting like, it was supposed to be the elves find the Fae are going to like, there's like a whole underground corruption plot that's going on behind the scenes. Like, it was going to be like gritty and like angsty, and this one was supposed to be very like, I loved the idea for the mythology behind all this. It felt very like tribal and very much of like connection with the animals that these people have in this world, and like it felt very like just different, like a very different take on the mythology of the normal. Like, I feel like normally when you think of the Fae, when you think of elves, you think of like the woodland creatures, and they live in like the moons and the forests and they're dancing with the flowers. And this one was kind of the opposite of that. It was more like jungle and like hard brushlands, and it was supposed to be like harsh like landscapes, and like these women are like powerful warriors, and like they're very much like part of like that like all like the female fighting and like things like that, and very like battle-born Pune people. It just was very like a different side of the elven Fae like normal that you normally get. And I really wanted to love this book. I just felt like it was rushed. I just felt like the author really rushed through it and didn't really take the time to like, again, slow down and develop, like let the relationships develop on their own. Like, I really wanted to love this book, and I just felt like things happened too quickly.
So slow it down, take a moment now.
It was very interesting. I just think it was a little bit rushed and a little bit not like fully thought through before it was executed. So take that as you will. I think I gave this one like 3.5 stars. And the last, but certainly not least, that I'm going to be speaking about in the did not quite make it to 5 stars, we have A Fate Inked in Blood by Danielle L. Jensen. Now, I spoke at length about this book, but just, again, a quick recap. We've got a shield maiden, it's Vikings, we've got a woman who's got special powers that's going to help the land, we've got a hot son, the king that she has to work for, who he's in love with her and she likes him, but like they can't be together because she's technically with his dad, and that's like really weird, but it's Vikings, so it's okay.
That was a little weird.
But anyways, A Fate Inked in Blood. Danielle L. Jensen, I love her. Love her. I think she's wonderful. I love her books. I think she writes them really well, but I felt like her slip up in A Fate Inked in Blood was that it was, again, too rushed. I feel like the overall theme of all these books is that people are rushing. They're rushing to the romance. They're rushing through things. They're rushing through character development. And I just wanted more time. Like, don't get me wrong. I ate this book up. It's 4.5 stars for a reason. Like, I gave it 4.5. Like, I really, really, really enjoyed this book. Like, it was still such a great time. Like, Bjorn, yes, so hot. I'm so in love with him. Need him badly. He's a Viking. Of course I need him.
There's quite literally nothing better I can think of than a peener.
But like, I just wanted more development for the characters, and the way that this one ended on the cliffhanger was crazy. The cliffhanger ending on this one, I'm like, oh, I know book 2 is going to be big slay. Book 2 is going to slay. big time. I know it's going to be everything. So like, I'm very excited. I just felt like Danielle Jensen, again, like I kind of wanted her to like slow down, take her time, not rush through things, not rush through the development of the characters. I feel like she was really rushing through that, and she should have just slowed down. Is the romance everything? Is the spice good? Yeah. Danielle Jensen kills it every freaking time. But again, just I need everyone to like slow down and just like let it be, and just like let the story like come out instead of like rushing through it and like not giving it the full like power that it deserves. Like, it deserves to be known as a 5-star read. And it's very, very good. And I still really enjoyed it. 4.5 stars is still really high. It's just not quite a 5-star. So go read A Fate Inked in Blood by Danielle Jensen. It is fabulous. I just need her to slow down just a little bit.
Fellas?
Now, on to my books that were actually a 5-star read. We are going to start with obviously the fan favorite, the one that I just cannot stop talking about this year. And listen, I'm sorry for bringing it up so often. We have Bride by Ali Hazelwood. Listen, guys, I've said my piece about Bride. I've talked about Bride ad nauseum on this channel to the point where everyone's going to start getting nauseous about every single time I bring up Bride. Everyone's going to be like, because I cannot stop talking about Bride. Okay, guys, listen. Is it a 5-star read in the way that Throne of Glass is a 5-star read? No. But because of the way that Ali Hazelwood designed the world, she designed the world in a very specific and simplistic way. It didn't need to go beyond the bounds of everything. See, I think the issue that I had with these books that I thought were going to be 5 stars is that these authors created worlds that had the opportunity to, like, the cup was overflowing with the ideas, and yet they stayed like within the bubble. And I was just kind of like, oh my gosh, like I want to see more, like let's see more. And we just didn't get that. Whereas in Ali Hazelwood's book, she created a world within the bubble, and it didn't need to go outside of that bubble because of the way that she designed it. It's an urban paranormal fantasy about vampires and werewolves. It's very simplistic. It's practically like mafia vibes meets arranged marriage, meets forced proximity. Like, it's varying species. It's sexy. It's hot. It's fun. I love Bride. I'm sorry. I'll keep recommending it to anyone who will listen to me because I just love it so much. I think it's one of the best things that I've read this year, and it's a definite 5 stars for me. So go and read Bride. The next one I want to recommend is one that I read just a little while ago, and it's by one of my new favorite authors, Miss Carissa Broadbent. We have Slaying the Vampire Conqueror. Now, I ate up Slaying the Vampire Conqueror because Carissa Broadbent is perfect. As you guys all know, I am hardcore in my vampire era, and this one did not disappoint. And this book, Slaying the Vampire Conqueror, takes place within the same world as Serpents in the Wings of Night. But it's a completely different story about completely different people. It has to do with a completely different race of vampire that like is in the world of the Serpents in the Wings of Night, but they're not like as involved. And then it also has to do with like a cult following and a girl who's like part of a cult leading. And she like essentially is after the leader of this vampire group. And then she ends up like working for him, to like going undercover and working for him, and they end up falling for each other. And like she ends up finding things out about her cult. It's like a whole thing. And so I just adore this book. I think it's brilliant. I think it's gritty. I think it's like honestly brilliantly written. I think that the cult is one of the coolest parts of this whole thing. It's so twisted and sick, but I love it. It's like so deranged. And that's what I love about Carissa Broadbent is she's not afraid to go in that direction. She's not afraid to go hard, gritty, and deranged. She's not afraid to make you feel a little sick to your stomach. And reading Slaying the Vampire Conqueror does make you a little queasy from time to time because of how dark she goes. And I just love her for it. I think Slaying the Vampire Conqueror was such a fun standalone read. I think it's a good way to like, I definitely recommend you read Serpents in the Wings of Night first. You read the duology, and then read Slaying the Vampire Conqueror, because it's like a nice little like, oh, I missed this world. I missed this vibe. It has nothing to do with any of the characters that are in that duology, but it's still a nice way to be like, oh my gosh, like I missed being with the vampire people. Like this is fun. I love how this like feels, and it's a good time. Again, it's assassins, it's knives to throats, it's vampires, it's sexy, it's hot, it's scary, and I just eat it up every single time. Slaying the Vampire Conqueror was a total 5-star knockout for me. Then we have the ones that I think are going to be a little bit different for you. And I gave a video on it like 3 or 4 videos ago, but I'm going to bring it up again. Let's talk about Heartless by Elise Silver. Now, I would say Bride and Heartless are the same kind of 5-star read, okay? They're in the same category of 5-star read. Whereas Slaying the Vampire Conqueror, I kind of put that in the SJM Throne of Glass kind of 5-star read. Whereas Heartless belongs in the Bride kind of 5-star read. Is it just a simple small town romance about a grumpy cowboy dad and a girl who he can't stand who ends up becoming his nanny? Yes. Is it sexy and hot and just downright filthy? Yes. Did I eat it up with a fork and knife? Yes. Was it so freaking cute and romantic and it made me want to live a life out in a Canadian ranch somewhere raising some man's child? Abso-freaking-lutely.
And if you feel it, I said if you feel it.
And I would for Cade Eaton. I would give my left arm for Cade Eaton. I would give anything to be with this man. I would do anything to be with this man. Hardworking, sexy, devoted, loyal, caring, like just a sweetheart. I cannot get enough. And for people who have never read the Chestnut Springs series, just do yourself a favor and go on a little cowboy adventure. Just go on a little cowboy adventure, a little cowboy romance. It's not going to do you any harm. And if anything, it'll just it'll feed the cowboy addiction that I am currently fighting with every fiber of my being every single day to not jump a cowboy at the nearest freaking Maverick store or gas station nearby. Listen. It's taking every single fiber of my being to not go crazy over Glenn Powell in the new Twisters movie. And did I see the movie? Yeah. And was he sexy as all get out? Yeah.
All naked, sudsed up.
Made me want him badly. But I'm just telling you, take a little walk on the western side, read the Chestnut Springs series by Elise Silver, but especially Heartless. Cannot get enough. I cannot believe this book ended up being 5 stars for me. But listen, I don't regret the rating and it still deserves it. Now we have one that I also have talked about a ton on this channel. But again, it's just because book 2 comes out in November and I want people to get ready and to get excited. I feel like I'm the only one who's excited for this book and who's excited for book 2. We have What the River Knows by Isabel. We have What the River Knows by Isabel Ibanez. I am so excited for book 2 in November. This book left off on the craziest cliffhanger of all time. Again, this book for me was very surprising. I expected to just be a cute little historical fiction meets fantasy meets Egyptian mythology meets The Mummy meets a cute Argentinian girl going to find her parents in Egypt, meets a sexy assistant boy and her uncle who's doing some shady business in Egypt with the artifacts and hieroglyphics and where are her parents and how they disappear. I very much expected it to be kind of just a little moment, I didn't think it was going to consume every waking moment of my being for what is going on with my characters, what is going on with my mans. Wit and Inez are so cute. I'm obsessed with them. Is the book YA? Yeah. But guess what, guys? It is so fun. It makes me want to go watch The Mummy with Brendan Fraser.
Let me guess. Spring cleaning.
Nice shot.
I just am obsessed with these two. And I want people to get excited for book 2. Book 2 comes out in November and I am literally so excited. It's going to be everything. This book literally has taken such a turn that I did not expect that I am so shook for book 2. What is it even going to be like? So this was one that kind of came out of nowhere for me last year. It really surprised me, but it ended up being one of my favorite things that I read last year. And I cannot recommend it enough as a very surprising 5-star read. And last but certainly not least, one that I have absolutely adored and have loved talking about this year so far as one of my favorite 5-star reads and as something that I am very proud to call a 5-star read, we have Leigh Bardugo's The Familiar. Now, again, I've talked about The Familiar a lot, but I just think that it needs to get the recognition it deserves. The Familiar is one of the few 5-star reads I've given out this year that I truly, within the depths of my soul, am so proud to give out that 5-star because it is absolutely so well deserved. For Leigh Bardugo's writing, for the prose, for the magic, for the idea, for the concept, for the characters. All of it is so well thought out, giving Spanish Inquisition meets magic, meets forbidden romance, meets intense life or death stakes, meets religious aspects that I never even considered for these people who live in this time. It's unbelievable. I love Leigh Bardugo and she always slays it, but listen, she really slayed it with The Familiar. The Familiar is that girl. Again, one of the most well-written, so carefully crafted with the most love and intention 5-star reads I've read so far this year. This one, I was an obvious 5-star read. Like, I knew from the page 1, from the first page that I read, in that first line, I was like, this is going to be a 5-star read. And Leigh Bardugo slays it every single time. If you are looking for something more on like along the historical vibes meets magic, kind of honestly, I would consider like in a What the River Knows, in a Divine Rival sort of way, where we're kind of entering this new era of like proper history meets like a little bit of magic. This is the book for you. I love The Familiar. It's intense, it's drama, it's religious, it's sacrifice, and it just is all so perfectly written. I cannot recommend this book enough. I absolutely adore it. So that is all the books that I have to recommend for you guys today. I hope that you enjoyed this video. And if you did, do not forget to like, comment, subscribe to the Live in Literature YouTube channel. I hope that you found something here today that inspires you. Even from my books that weren't 5-star reads, they still had some pretty high ratings up in there. So I hope you'll check those ones out. And of course, the ones that I recommended that were 5 stars, definitely give those ones a look at. I'm telling you, they're all so worth it. And they're all so wonderful. Again, I hope you guys enjoyed my recommendations today. I hope you have an amazing day, and I will catch you in the next one. Bye.